What's your name?
Andrew Neiman, sir?
So you know I'm looking for players.
Yes, sir.
Then why did you stop playing? Did I ask you to start playing again?
Sorry,
I asked why you
misunderstood.
stopped playing, and your version of an answer was to turn into a wind-up monkey.
There are some movies about ambition that make you want to work harder and never give up. And then there is Whiplash, a film where ambition doesn't just push someone forward, it slowly starts to consume them. At first, Andrew looks like a young drummer who just wants to be great. He practices alone, he wants to be noticed, and like most people chasing something bigger, he thinks the right opportunity will change everything. But the moment Fletcher enters his life, the film becomes something much darker, because Fletcher doesn't teach through encouragement. He teaches through fear, pressure, humiliation, and control.
Neiman? 1 and 2 and... Stop the tempo! Sorry guys, hate to put you through this.
And what makes it uncomfortable is that Andrew doesn't walk away. He keeps coming back. Not because it feels good, but because somewhere along the way, he starts believing that suffering might be the price of greatness. That's what makes Whiplash so powerful. It's not just a film about music. It's about obsession, approval, and the dangerous line between being pushed to become better and being broken completely.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
At the beginning of Whiplash, Andrew Neiman doesn't really stand out. He's quiet, awkward, and almost invisible compared to the other students around him. But what immediately becomes clear is how badly he wants this. Not fame necessarily, and not even success in the traditional sense.
What does he want?
What Andrew wants is greatness. The kind of greatness that makes people remember your name long after you're gone.
I'm sorry.
And that's important because the film never presents Andrew as naturally confident or gifted in an obvious way. In fact, a lot of the time he seems unsure of himself.
Would you want to go out with me? Ever?
He struggles socially, he keeps to himself, and there's this constant feeling that he's trying to prove something, not just to other people, but to himself. What I found interesting is that Whiplash doesn't romanticize this obsession in the beginning. Andrew's life already feels unbalanced, long before Fletcher fully enters the picture. Almost everything outside of drumming starts to feel secondary. His relationships, his social life, even the way he sees himself, all of it becomes tied to one idea: becoming extraordinary.
I think being the greatest musician of the 20th century is anybody's idea of success. I'd rather die drunk, broke at 34 and have people at a dinner table talk about me than live to be rich and sober at 90 and nobody remember who I was.
And underneath all of that is fear. The fear of being ordinary. The fear of living a normal life and disappearing without ever becoming significant.
I'm here for a reason.
That fear quietly drives almost every decision Andrew makes throughout the film. Then Fletcher notices him. And from that moment onward, the film stops feeling like a story about music school and starts becoming something much more intense. What makes Fletcher so intimidating when we first properly meet him isn't just the way he speaks or the way he controls the room. It's the fact that nobody around him seems comfortable.
Look up here, look at me.
Every student looks tense. Every interaction feels unpredictable, and there's this constant feeling that one mistake could completely destroy you.
May I?
At first, Fletcher almost comes across as calm, maybe even supportive. And that's what makes him difficult to read in the beginning. He doesn't immediately present himself as a villain. In fact, there are moments where he genuinely seems invested in pushing his students toward greatness. But very quickly, you start to realize that his entire philosophy is built around pressure, psychological pressure.
Is that really the fastest you can play, you worthless Jaime? No wonder Mommy ran out on you. Get up, kid.
The famous "not my tempo" scene is uncomfortable to watch because Fletcher isn't really correcting Andrew anymore. He's breaking him down in front of everyone else. Every question feels less about music and more about control.
Definitely have an out-of-tune player.
Fletcher needs complete dominance over the room, and the terrifying part is that everybody accepts it. And what makes Fletcher so effective is how unpredictable he is. One moment he seems calm and encouraging, and the next moment he completely humiliates someone in front of the entire band.
Parker, that is not your boyfriend's. Do not come early.
Nobody knows which version of Fletcher they are going to get, and that uncertainty creates constant tension in every rehearsal scene. You can even see it in the way the students behave around him. Nobody speaks unless spoken to. Nobody relaxes. Everybody is terrified of making even the smallest mistake, because Fletcher has created an environment where perfection feels like survival. What I found interesting is that Fletcher never sees himself as abusive. In his mind, pressure creates greatness. Fear creates discipline. Humiliation creates improvement. And because he genuinely believes that, his behavior becomes even more disturbing.
Look up here, look at me.
He isn't losing control emotionally. Most of the time, he knows exactly what he's doing. As Whiplash progresses, the film slowly starts showing the cost of Andrew's obsession. And what makes it effective is that the change doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, almost quietly, until you suddenly realize that his entire life now revolves around Fletcher's approval. At first, Andrew's dedication almost feels admirable. He practices constantly, pushes himself harder than everyone else, and refuses to settle for being average. But over time, that dedication starts becoming something much darker. The more Fletcher humiliates him, the harder Andrew works, as if suffering itself becomes proof that he's getting closer to greatness. And what makes those scenes uncomfortable is that the film never presents Andrew as being forced into this obsession. In many ways, he chooses it.
Why do you suppose I just hurled a chair at your head, Neiman?
Every time he has an opportunity to step away, he pushes himself even harder instead. What I found interesting is how isolated Andrew becomes during all of this. Almost every relationship in his life slowly starts collapsing because of the obsession consuming him. Conversations become shorter, emotional connection disappears, and eventually even normal happiness starts feeling like a distraction to him.
I'm gonna keep pursuing what I'm pursuing. And because I'm doing that, it's gonna take up more and more of my time, and I'm not gonna be able to spend as much time with you. Because I wanna be great. I wanna be one of the greats. For those reasons, I'd rather just, break it off clean.
That breakup scene is uncomfortable because Andrew genuinely believes he's doing the right thing. He explains that relationships will only get in the way of greatness, and for the first time, you realize how completely his priorities have changed. At this point, becoming extraordinary matters more to him than being emotionally healthy, connected, or even happy. And the disturbing part is that Fletcher's philosophy is slowly working. But the film constantly forces you to question whether the improvement is actually worth the damage it's causing. Because by this point, Andrew no longer seems driven by passion alone. He's driven by obsession. By the final act of Whiplash, the relationship between Andrew and Fletcher no longer feels like a normal student-teacher dynamic. At this point, it almost feels personal. Fletcher has spent the entire film controlling Andrew through pressure, humiliation, and unpredictability, and Andrew has spent the entire film desperately trying to prove that he belongs in Fletcher's world. But after the car accident, the failed performance, and Andrew attacking Fletcher on stage, it finally feels like everything between them has collapsed for good. For the first time, Andrew seems disconnected from drumming itself. The obsession that once consumed his entire life suddenly feels empty. And when he unexpectedly meets Fletcher again later, the dynamic between them initially feels very different. Fletcher seems calmer, less aggressive, almost reflective. He talks to Andrew more like an equal than a student. Fletcher invites Andrew to perform with his band, and Andrew accepts, partly because some part of him still wants Fletcher's approval. But the moment the performance begins, Andrew realizes something is wrong. Fletcher intentionally gives him music he has never practiced before. And suddenly, it becomes clear that this was never about giving Andrew another opportunity. Fletcher is humiliating him, one final time, in front of an audience full of important people. And what makes the scene difficult to watch is how powerless Andrew looks in that moment. Earlier in the film, he was constantly trying to survive Fletcher's pressure behind closed doors. But now Fletcher is destroying him publicly. For a moment, Fletcher wins completely. Andrew walks off stage, defeated, embarrassed, and emotionally exhausted. But Whiplash does something much more interesting. Andrew stops walking. And when he turns around and walks back onto that stage, something fundamentally changes between both characters. Because for the first time in the entire film, Andrew is no longer reacting to Fletcher. He is no longer waiting for instructions, approval, or permission. Instead, he starts playing entirely on his own terms. Fletcher realizes what is happening. That power shift is what makes the ending so satisfying. Throughout the entire film, Fletcher controlled everything. He controlled the room, the rehearsals, the fear, the pressure, and most importantly, Andrew himself. Every decision Andrew made was shaped by Fletcher's approval or disappointment. But during this final performance, Fletcher loses that control. At first, you can even see confusion on his face, because Andrew is no longer following the structure Fletcher created. He is forcing Fletcher to adapt to him instead. And what makes the scene so powerful is that Fletcher slowly realizes what is happening. Andrew is finally becoming the musician he always wanted to be. The final scene feels thrilling because Andrew finally takes control, but it also feels disturbing because you realize how much pain it took for him to get there. And that is why the ending stays with people long after the film is over. It does not give you a simple victory or a simple tragedy. It gives you something far more uncomfortable, the possibility that greatness and self-destruction may sometimes exist side by side. And that's what makes Whiplash such an unforgettable film. It doesn't give you a simple answer about whether Fletcher was right or wrong. Instead, it leaves you stuck somewhere in between. Because as uncomfortable as Fletcher's methods are, Andrew does achieve greatness in the end. The problem is that by the time he gets there, you're left wondering how much of himself he had to lose along the way. And maybe that's the real question the film leaves behind. At what point does ambition stop pushing someone forward and start consuming them completely? If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow.